guys. Good afternoon. This is Ifeoma Udalami, immigration attorney from the Udalami Law Firm in New Jersey. So, I have a really great topic today. A question from a client who had just gotten a prima facie, and they had called us before we got a chance to reach out to them to explain what it is. And so today's topic is, what is a prima facie determination letter? I'm going to discuss that today. So, prima facie determination is a letter that you get because you filed a VAWA application, right? Now, when you get a prima facie determination letter, it means that you have met the barest minimum requirements that USCIS requires from people who are filing to get a green card through VAWA. VAWA stands for Violence Against Women's Act, right? Like you guys know, I've told you guys many times, applies to men, applies to women, applies to children. So typically, this is how it works. You put in your VAWA application, and then maybe 2 to 3 months later, you get a prima facie determination letter. Now, sometimes USCIS kind of screws up. They don't send it on time, or they don't send it until much later, right? But if you don't get it, typically what we do is we follow up with them on the hotline to ask them what's going on. We've never really had a case where we didn't get the letter. It's usually when we don't get the renewals on time, which I'll go into. So when you get the prima facie determination letter, what it tells you is that you've met the barest minimum. So think of a prima facie determination letter as a kind of like a pre-approval. Like if you're buying a home, right? You get pre-approved for a loan. Now, does that mean that you have everything that you need to get to go through the closing? No, it's just the first step. So it's good news, because if you don't get a prima facie letter, that's not good. So when you get it, it means that you're on the right track. So now, what does a prima facie determination letter actually give you? Well, it really depends on what state you live in. So typically, prima facie determinations give you benefits, right? Because USCIS is aware of the fact that a lot of VAWA applicants are in dire straits. They're either, they don't have food, or they're going through a really difficult time with accommodation and all that. So depending on what state you live in, you may get one or more benefits. So in some states you get food stamps. In some states you can, if you're somebody who's looking to you're looking to get loans for schools, you can get a federal aid for loans. You can also get, in some states, you might be able to apply for a driver's license, right? In many states, that's not really necessary anymore. In New Jersey and New York, where we are, undocumented people can get a driver's license. You don't need a prima facie determination letter. But there's some states that it really comes in useful, right? So if you get a prima facie determination letter, what you're supposed to take from that is your application is headed in the right direction. And if you want to know what benefits you can get from there, you want to call your Board of Social Services to see what benefits you can get with your prima facie determination letter. So the first letter you get is good for 1 year, and then a couple of months before that expires, USCIS is supposed to send you another one, which they will continue to renew in increments of 6 months until they make a determination on your VAWA application. The minimum requirements you need to get a prima facie determination are really the minimum requirements that VAWA application is looking for. You have to show that you are married to a U.S. citizen or green card holder if you're getting your VAWA based on marriage, right? You have to show that you're married to a U.S. citizen or green card holder. You have to, if you're getting a VAWA as a child of a U.S. citizen or as a parent of a U.S. citizen, you have to produce the documentation that shows that relationship, which would be maybe a birth certificate or the marriage between your parent and your step-parent, which which had to have occurred before you turned 18, and all that. So that would be the first thing. The second is to show, and I'm going to talk about this in terms of a marriage situation, because that's typically the most complicated VAWA submission, right? So you also want to show that not only are you married to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, that it is what is considered a bona fide marriage, which means that you are, if you were married to somebody in the past, you were properly divorced, right? And that you're able to marry this U.S. citizen or green card holder. You also want to show that it is a valid, good faith marriage, which means that you entered into the marriage because you want to be with a U.S. citizen and not solely for immigration benefits. That's number 2. Number 3 is you have to show that there has been abuse in the relationship. And it could be physical abuse, or it could be psychological abuse, or emotional abuse, or verbal abuse, or financial abuse, or sexual abuse. So don't get stuck on the physical abuse. USCIS is looking at physical abuse or extreme cruelty. That's the definition for the types of abuse they're looking for, okay? Now, also looking to see that at some point you and this person live together, cohabitated at some point. So you have to produce evidence regarding that. And then you have to show that you are a person of good moral character, right? And to show you're a person of good moral character, USCIS is typically looking back 3 years from when you put in your application. Now, sometimes they have the discretion to look further, right? So typically what we do is we submit an FBI report showing that our client has no criminal record. Sometimes we can submit a state report, or you can, basically what you're required to do is to submit a report from anywhere you have lived in the past 3 years for more than 6 months. You can produce a letter from the police, a police clearance from the police department, or you can get an FBI fingerprints report indicating that you have no criminal record. Now, if you do have a criminal record, that does not mean that your case is lost. You just need to talk to an attorney to figure out if there can be if your case can be rehabilitated. So now remember that the burden of proof is on you as the applicant to produce this information. However, the standard of proof is any credible evidence. That's the standard of proof. Joe says, does a prima facie stand that you have hope of getting your case approved? Hi, Joe. This is a great question because I even forgot to mention that now. A prima facie does not say that your case is not a guarantee that your case is going to be approved. It's because really it's not a guarantee, because I think what it is that USCIS knows that it's going to take them a long time to review the VAWA application, right? Because it's taking 2 to 2.5 years, even though we've been able to get VAWAs approved in 8 to 9 months, but we're grateful for that. That's not the norm. I think VAWA USCIS understands that it's going to take a while, so they go through the application to make sure that you're hitting the barest minimum, right? But the decision is not being made at that time. Now, sometimes during the process of the waiting period, they require additional documents, and then they'll send something called a request for evidence. And of course, if you don't respond to the request for evidence in a manner that satisfies them, they can deny the case. So, Joe, the answer to that is that a prima facie is not a guarantee that your case is going to be approved, but it is a step in the right direction, because if you get your prima facie earlier on, it means that you're going in the right direction. And if you get an RFE or request for evidence, you want to make sure you answer that very, articulately, and you want to make sure that you answer it very vigorously, because not responding to an RFE or not responding to an RFE properly can get your case dismissed. So Karena says, can you get a work permit before prima facie? Is it a good sign too? Karena, that's a fantastic question. So it's a 2-part question. So let me answer it. Yes, you can get a work permit before prima facie, right? And typically you get the prima facie first, but sometimes the work permit comes first. It happens. It doesn't mean that it's not an aberration. It's okay. It happens. However, you have to understand that the prima facie is your I-360 application, right? And that is separate from your I-485 adjustment of status application. Your I-485 adjustment of status application is the application that gives you the work permit, the travel permit, the work permit and the travel permit, and that's where you actually get the green card, right? So when you get your work permit, it has no bearing on your VAWA case. And the reason is because when the VAWA case is approved 2 years later, VAWA moves the case to the adjustment of status unit, right? They're two separate offices dealing with these cases. Now, the adjustment of status is where you actually get your green card if you're approved. VAWA does not give you a green card, right? VAWA is a relief that gives you the right to request for a green card. So there are people who get a VAWA application approved, but they cannot adjust their status because they're inadmissible. So what the adjustment of status does is it looks to see whether you're admissible into the United States. Have you committed any misrepresentations, any fraud? Do you have any criminal background? Basically, do you have any inadmissibility issues, right? That's what it does. So if when you get your work permit, that has no bearing on VAWA. It's just that you filed an adjustment of status application at the same time as you filed your VAWA, and so they give you a work permit. But whether or not you get that green card, which the adjustment of status application is tied to, comes after the VAWA approval. So for some people that are not admissible, they have the VAWA approval that allows them to work, but they cannot get a green card. I hope that long-winded answer made sense to you guys. Getting your papers is really important, because not only can you, when you get your papers, you can reach out, help your family, get them in here, and then be able to spend time together, either here in the United States or abroad. Like if I wanted to travel, I could travel to Nigeria, but there was a long time ago before I got my papers, when I couldn't travel because I didn't have the right documents to travel. So yes, we love to help you guys. So call us 973-993-1900. I have a question here from T Today 18. He says, or she says, how long for VAWA approval? I have 18. Okay, so VAWA approvals, they're just all over the place now. If you asked me before September, I would have told you 2 years, 2.5 years. However, we had several cases that we got approved within 8 and 9 months. And that is amazing, yes. So, but on an average, I'm going to tell you it takes about 2 to 2.5 months. Those cases were not typical. So if you have a VAWA application, you really should be looking at a couple of years. I wish you much love, God's blessings with you and your family. Until I see you guys again, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.